Hello, welcome to Career Convos. I'm super happy to be here with Brad, who is a construction manager and is here to share a little bit about his experience. Brad, thank you so much for coming.
Sure, yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing a little bit about your experience. And I think it will be really helpful for people that are considering a career in construction. I know sometimes the idea that people have about a job and how it actually is can be different. And so I'm excited to hear a little bit of the inside scoop on what it's like to be in management in the construction industry. So why don't you start by giving me just a brief summary of your work history and how you got to be in this position that you are now?
Yeah, sure, you bet. I really wasn't that academic oriented in a lot of ways. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I think I was like a lot of people. You want to go to college, but not sure which direction I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so I was always more of a hands-on person. I love building things. I love fiddling with things, working on cars, other projects. And Arizona State had a really good construction program. I did not know that much about it. So when I checked it out, some of the things that really appealed to me were that it was a very practical program. It was surveying, it was concrete, it was HVAC systems, it was electrical, and a lot of the professors that taught these courses actually owned businesses in those fields. And so the a lot of the adjunct professors there own companies, and so I really liked that a lot. It was something that I saw that was very practical. It wasn't just professors that were there that really didn't understand the field or the business, and so I thought it'd be great. But I had to do some cleanup, so I actually had to clean up some courses that I did not take too seriously. So I actually was on academic probation for a semester and did really well after that. So I graduated from Arizona State and then got into the construction field and went to go work for a general contractor that I worked through for most of my college career. Also, I built an honors college right there on the Arizona State campus and did many different projects, and then eventually started my own business. And from there, 2008, the economy took a big hit. So did construction, especially in Arizona, and ended up in Oklahoma, worked there, and then made my way to Idaho. Now I work for a builder out here that does development, construction. They a lot of multifamily, so they hold their own assets and run their own properties. And so it's been good. I've been exposed to a lot of different construction types, business types, and that's pretty much a short summary of where I am today.
Awesome. So through all of your work experience, and I know you've had other job titles too along the way, but a lot of management experience in the construction industry. What were some of the best things, the things that you've enjoyed the most about the work that you do?
The thing I like most by far is that it's tangible. I see something all the time being built. And that's very exciting. If anybody's built anything, whether it be remodeling their house or maybe they've had a house built or anything like that, it's always an amazing thing to see something physically go from maybe just a piece of dirt to an actual structure, and to know that I was always part of that, and having that essentially a tangible item that you can say I was a part of that. I helped do that, and then to understand the building process. I mean, it's something that I've applied a lot in the rest of my life, and I think it's very practical.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how that's really satisfying to be able to have almost like a physical legacy of your work. I mean, sometimes when people bring their kids to work, it's very hard for them to understand what their parent does. But for you, it's easier for the people to understand, and you have actual physical product when you're done, which is cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, like my daughter Lila said the other day, it's Peppa Pig, and Peppa Pig pours concrete, and she knows that I do concrete work, so we have a lot in common already.
Well, I'm sure she loves that. Okay, so what are some of the challenges that you have found in your field? What are some of the things that are a little bit of a challenge, either in your actual position or just in the field at large?
Right now, I think a lot of businesses struggle with this, but construction, it's a huge issue. It's the construction isn't really the hardest part by far. It's the people. First off, there's a lack of labor. Every trade is in desperate need of labor. It's shrinking every year. Few and fewer people go into the trades or willing to work. We have, for an example, as far as superintendents go, we have way more superintendents retiring that are coming up in the ranks and being replaced. That's a huge problem. And people don't want to do the trades. They don't want to do physical work, it's lacking. So that's our number one issue. The other one is just dealing with people in general. The thing that people have to realize that every construction project is an original. We're not Ford or Chevy. We don't build the same F-150 pickup trucks, a million times throughout the year. You could even be building something as simple as like a McDonald's, but it'll be on a different piece of land. It'll be with a different municipality, which has different permitting. It'll be different laborers, different subcontractors, different weather can greatly affect your project. So that's a huge challenge in itself, but by far and away, it's dealing with all the different people that are involved. Because when you look at a construction project, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people even involved in a fairly simple construction project. Uh, there's people that go through the entitlements for the land to get it zoned differently. And then just the design, there's architects, there's HVAC engineers, there's civil engineers, there's structural engineers, there's electrical engineers that are involved in it. And then you have all the plan reviews through the cities that people do. I mean, that can be dozens and dozens of people just in itself. I haven't even gotten into the financing portion. There can be tons of people involved through an investment standpoint, financing standpoint. And then that's even before you break ground. And then you break ground, you have inspectors from the city, you have dirt contractors, and then all the trades to do that building. And then so by the time you get to the end, even on a small project, I mean, literally there's probably over 1,000 people in the end that have touched that project in some way or another. So it's being able to navigate the people side of things that is always the bigger issue than the actual physical building part.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people might not quite understand how many personal skills you need in order to be successful in this line of work, is what it sounds like from what you're saying.
Yeah, I really go back to one of my professors was actually the president of our construction program at Arizona State. And he would come in and do these little mini lectures, and he would call them life lectures that it was really to teach us the skills and different things that we needed outside of the classroom. And he always used to emphasize the people part. And he had a saying that said, you'll be hired for your technical skills and you'll be fired for your lack of people skills. And that's what it really comes down to. You have to be able to get along with people. You have to understand what other people value, not just what you value, but what others do as well. So you know how uh, to make sure you're making offers to people and fulfilling your commitments, and more importantly, the commitments and concerns that others have as well, of not just your own.
Yeah, so being able to anticipate what other people need and being able to kind of bridge those gaps so that you project can move forward. And obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of conflicts and lots of difficulties because, as you were saying, they are original projects. So being able to navigate all of that does sound like a challenge. Do you see any? Oh, do you see any change?
Sorry, somebody just walked by and waved at me.
Do you see any changes coming to your industry at large? Or, I guess what that's asking is technology playing a bigger role, or any other kind of factors that might be affecting your industry?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that because just last week I toured a plant that the owner of our company is a partial owner and investor in, and it's called Autovol. And what Autovol does is they build modular units. So think of it as taking a big rectangular building and then breaking that building down into a bunch of smaller rectangles, basically small enough rectangles that can fit on a flatbed truck. And what Autovol does is they use robotics to build these. They use human labor and robotics because a lot of our projects are in California. Labor is two things in California. It's first off, it's scarce and it's very, very expensive. And so by using a factory setting to do the labor, it makes it more efficient. And then having a lot of the robotics do about 2/3 of the work. You know, they cut the lumber, they nail it together, build the floors, build the ceilings, and then the human side basically, you know, does all the rough-in, the plumbing, the electrical, HVAC, those things. And so that's a huge thing that the industry is looking for alternatives to labor. And so by having robotic factories, we're going to see that more and more. It's more efficient, the quality is better by
Mhm.
the robots doing this. And then also it helps with the scarcity of labor. And I think we're going to see that more and more through automation, robotics, other things. In a lot of industries, it just happens that way because people look at it as more efficient and cheaper. In construction, it's really addressing the labor shortage. And so we're going to see more and more of those types of systems being put in place where even a custom home is no longer going to be fully custom. More than likely, a lot of that home is going to be built off site, trucked in, and pieced together. That's just what the future is going to be because there's just not enough labor. So like every industry, it's trying to embrace automation and the artificial intelligence and all those things. It's touching every industry, and construction will be a part of it as well.
Interesting. Very interesting. Um, so what would you say to somebody interested in this field and wanting to be successful? And we talked a little bit about people skills. What other skills do you feel like would be really good to develop or to focus on if you're wanting to work in management of construction? And even if you want to address like superintendent role as well, or maybe touch on a few of the other roles that are included there just briefly.
Sure, you bet. So I touched on the fact that you're dealing with a lot of people, which is true, but it is construction. There's going to be a lot of problems. If people out there, even if they've done something as simple as they want to tackle remodeling the bathroom in their house, I mean, that little project there alone has a million issues. You know, plumbing needs to be moved, light fixtures need to be moved, things don't line up, you're ripping out floors, the floor has issues, the walls have issues. It's just not so simple. And construction's that way too. And so my point in that is you're going to have a lot of challenges. You're going to have a lot of problems that come up because that's just construction. I mean, things don't line up. For an example, you know, from your structural drawings, your architectural, maybe something doesn't line up correctly. So you're constantly in a problem solving mode. And I think a key to that is being able to be level headed to first off, I've been in this business long enough to understand that things don't go right, but that's okay. It's just the ability to address the problems in a timely manner. Don't ignore issues. Everything gets exposed eventually, so you may as well deal with it when it comes up because that's the easiest time to deal with it. You bury an issue. Unfortunately, if you bury something, it means you got to uncover it and redo it. And so it's easier not to bury the issue, just address it when it comes up. So I think it's to be emotionally pretty level on things, to know that instead of getting upset about things, go into a mode of, okay, how do I solve this issue and move this thing along? And that's something that did not come easy to me at first. I mean, it can be very easy to get frustrated with things because things don't go well. But at the same time, to be able to just look at an issue, get the right people together and say, how are we going to solve this? And so you asked me about different fields. So pretty much, you know, working for a general contractor, two main positions you can think about is you're either going to be kind of on the management side, like I am, which I deal more with budgets, subcontractor contracts, owner contracts, and dealing with a lot of schedules and things such as that, making sure that the right products are being installed, where the superintendent is dealing more with the day-to-day physical aspects of the projects. He's really coordinating the subcontractors, making sure they're meeting scheduled, looking at issues in the field, trying to resolve them at a field level. I've been on project sites a ton in my careers. I've just been around it a lot, so I can help. But but the superintendent, his primary responsibilities are to address those field issues, whether it be safety, making sure everybody's safe, making sure quality assurance is met, the right product is being installed, to make sure it's being installed correctly. And then also, he does help me maintain the budget by him being efficient in the field. It also helps me with my budgets. Nothing is more costly than having to do rework. Having to rip out concrete is an example that happens. And so I primarily work with a superintendent, but at the same time in my office, it's interesting because here, I mean, I would say as far as females and males, it's 60-40 actually females in my office. I mean, we have project managers that, like myself, construction managers, they're female. I mean, most of our accounting group is female. Pretty much the contract admins, assistant project managers. So it's really an interesting mix. And so I would say actually the Pacific companies who I work for now, I mean, because they do uh, the development side, the construction, the financing, and then they manage the assets afterwards. But I would say throughout our business, it's probably a 60-40 split, females to males. So even in the construction industry, there's still a great opportunity for anybody. And this field is just in dire need of individuals. We are not replacing the people that are retiring, not even close. So we are having to get a little creative, maybe take on people from other fields that normally we wouldn't, that we could just pick from people that have worked for general contractors that had a degree in construction management. We don't really have that luxury anymore. We find ourselves more and more of looking at other attributes, people that are first off willing to learn, willing to be coached, who have the right attitude. And a lot of times they have the right emotional aptitude as well. They're a person that you can tell that when things don't go well or things are difficult, they'll be able to be level headed in the moment and be able to, focus on the concern rather than the problem, or focus on the solution. Because a lot of people get so bent out of shape over the problem, I think they lose focus on, well, what are we really trying to solve?
Okay, so you kind of
And
there's lots of different skill sets that can be used even from other industries. And so using, management, you're managing more people and you're managing the budgets, the more financial side, building schedules. And then the superintendent is one that's the more functional, actually following through on the actual project. What are some of the other positions that are available in the industry? You talked about the, accounting group, any other?
well, it's really unlimited because now you're getting into every trade. So think of a house and just go around your house. I mean, there's an electrician, there's HVAC, there's concrete, there's plumbing, there's framing, there's drywall. Pretty much all those industries are in dire need of people. So it's an endless number. I mean, then we deal with companies that supply all the products as well. And then I haven't even really touched on
Do you
the archi. Oh, go ahead.
you have your own supply people, or is that
Yeah, we buy directly from a lot of groups, and then we have others. Then we contract with others to install it. So that's very common on a lot of different products. We'll just buy them directly, and either our labor force will install them, or we'll get others. So it's pretty much just an endless amount of people. I mean, even on the design side, architectural engineering, I mean, that's a whole different group that we deal with all the time,
Right.
and they're always in need of individuals. So no, go ahead.
You feel like, as far as getting back to the original question of the kinds of skills that would be applicable to your field, people skills, maybe what are the other skills that you were saying?
It's really, I mean, it's a lot of analysis. It's trying to figure out, it's analyzing budgets. Everybody has to meet budgets. And really it's understanding, being able to dive into drawings and understanding the concepts of construction and get in those details and see what's wrong, um, I deal with design issues all day long. And so I think being able to be analytical, being able to focus on issues such as that and be able to dive in on those things is always a great skill to
Maybe,
have.
maybe prioritizing as well with the prioritizing your tasks and time management since you have a lot of problems, right?
Oh yeah, being able to organize your day, because there's never enough time. I mean, it's pretty rare that I take more issues off my list than I add. There's always issues that come up, so it's be able to work through those things in a timely manner and resolve those because I have obligations to a lot of people. And so, and the problem is with construction, it's extremely tangible, which is great, but it's also bad too because anybody can go out there and easily see that your project's either ahead or behind or things are going well. It's very, very physical. It's not some abstract thing or something on paper.
Can't hide and catch up later, right?
No, no, no. The project's either done on time or it's not. It's very easy to measure. It's either on budget or it's not.
Mhm. Okay, and so what can you tell us about the work-life balance that your industry provides or is available?
It's challenging. It's definitely, if you have a family, um, it's construction. So there's tons of problems. There's deadlines. There's things that have to be met. A lot of obligations to a lot of different people. So because of that, it's a lot of work and it's hard work and it's not easy. And so it does take a lot of time. It kind of has its ups and downs. And so work-life balance, it can be pretty good, but at the same time, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. So I think that's one of the challenges, especially like the superintendents, like I talked about. I mean, they travel from job to job. So I know superintendents that have traveled all over the country, project to project. And so that can be a difficult task, but at the same time, a lot of these guys that are willing to travel, they do very well financially as well. And those individuals that are willing to do that, I mean, they come at, especially in this day and age, they come at a premium. So because of the scarcity, those guys tend to, um, they demand and they get a higher salary and compensation for it.
Um, what do you know about the difference between working in a smaller firm versus a larger firm? I know you had mentioned outside of this call that you've worked at smaller and more larger firms. Can you kind of touch on that?
Yeah, real quick. The smaller firms, it gives you typically have a lot more latitude to make decisions, which is great. You have more responsibility, which means you have more say in things. But because of that, smaller firms tend to be more volatile as well. So I think that's a big drawback. The other thing is sometimes the smaller firms don't tend to be as quite as sophisticated in a lot of ways because they do deal with smaller revenues. Sometimes they don't quite can't afford some of the things that the larger firms do. For instance, when I worked for a larger firm, I mean, they built Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Their contract on that thing, I believe, was about $1.4 billion. So because of the revenue, different things, they did things a lot different. The project teams were huge. But at the same time, you were more of a small cog in a huge machine.
Mhm.
Um, so things are more standardized, you stay within your lane, and you have very specific project responsibilities, and your upward mobility is a little bit more limited. It's a little bit more defined. Whereas with a small firm, it's pretty much a lot of times as much responsibility as you can take on, they're going to give it to you. So I'd say that's the big difference.
Mm, okay. Is there anything that you wish you had known about your field before you began?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like any field until you're actually in it. It's hard to know exactly. I think the work-life balance is a struggle. There's times where I've had to travel a lot for work, where all my projects were away from home, away from my home city I lived in. And so that can cause issues because there's a lot of times where I had to be there to get things straightened out. And that makes it very challenging at times. And so I think there are a lot of great opportunities, but some of the other things that I wish I would have known were just um, the reality of just how much work it takes. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's issues every day, which is good and bad. I mean, some days I absolutely love the challenge, and other days it really wears on you because when you have really difficult construction projects that don't go well, maybe they have budget issues, they have regional issues, they have scheduling issues. It puts a lot of pressure on you, and those deadlines, um, they can be overwhelming at times because you have a lot of people that are demanding projects be done because they're counting on them to be done for them to run their business, and so they can meet their obligations. So there's a lot of pressure involved. I mean, honestly, I had no idea how pressure packed this industry is. And I have, my brothers into this industry, a lot of people I know. I mean, I know tons of people in this industry, and we all feel that at different times that there's enormous pressure.
Mm. And so it seems like maybe you need a bit of resilience if you're going to pursue this path. You just need a little bit of resilience in order to weather some of that. And were there any other surprises about what work was like? I mean, you had mentioned you'd already kind of worked in the industry even before you graduated from college. Was it mostly what you expected or what you thought?
Uh, One of the things I reflect on is just how much I've learned because there's every trade. I've learned a lot about every different trade. There's just so many aspects to construction. I'm constantly learning all the time. And with that, one thing I've really learned is that there's a ton I don't know. And to have the humility to be able to seek guidance from others that are expert in those fields, because it's impossible to be an expert on every aspect of building. And so I think it's helped me to understand that I need to change different. And it's like a superintendent I worked with that, he always told me, he's like, in this business, you don't want to have one experience over 25 years. You want to have 25 years of experience. And that means you're learning and adapting, because it's very easy to get trapped in doing the same things over and over because you think you're experienced and you know how to do it. Things change too quickly. There's always a better way to do it. And so to be able to learn that and adapt has always been a key attribute to have.
Yeah, and it sounds like for the future that will even be more crucial, just to continue to be open to change and pivoting your practices and how you approach things based on, what's going on. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all of your comments. I feel like this gives somebody a really good idea of what it would be like to enter the field of construction. And, I think it's been really great information. I really appreciate you being willing to share that with us today.
Sure, yeah. Hopefully, I didn't scare anybody away from this profession, but maybe so.
It's a really cool field. A lot of wonderful things. That what would we do without people building things for us? We need it. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
exactly.
Have a great day.
All right. Thanks.
This episode of Career Convos is brought to you by Aligned Ambition. If you're looking for help while preparing to enter the workforce, need tools to build your resume, or are looking for guidance in finding a career path that is a great fit for you and your personal strengths, click on the link in the show notes to learn more about what Aligned Ambition has to offer.